Good.
Okay.
Speed. You marker.
Mark. And action.
Mr. King, you went out on that bridge in direct violation of this judge's order. You intentionally disobeyed this judge and the governor, did you not?
In Hollywood, by and large, a spirit that governs what we do a lot of the time is self-service. You know, what am I going to get out of this experience? How is this going to further my career? How much of an audience, how much money is this movie going to make? And those are all things that creep into the atmosphere of a film. They just do. I think the difference with this film is I can genuinely say that there is an overriding feeling of service. How can we serve this incredible community who daily put their lives on the line for the privileges we now enjoy?
And it is tricky because, of course, you have this moral obligation, don't you? You're dealing with people who are real. So it makes it rather more difficult to do the ruthless thing that you have to do when you're writing a drama. You do have to exclude and include on a very, hard-headed basis for the sake of the drama. You know, there is the difference between the documentary and the drama. And the drama is about usually intense relationships between a fairly limited number of characters, because otherwise it does tend to dissipate.
And my approach was to tell the truth of it as best we could, because the actual facts of what happened, the actual people who did it, are more fascinating than anything you can make up. So in this film, there are no kind of composite characters. Like, this guy is a combination of this person, no. Everyone you see in this film really lived, really struggled, really did these things.
We got it. I didn't think it was possible to have even more respect and honor for someone, but as I started working on this more and more, I just realized what courageous Americans these men were, and Hosea Williams. This is a man who fought in World War II and coming back home still didn't have the right to vote. Someone who actually believes in the American aesthetic more than folks who were actually exercising it in government and local government, particularly in the South. So it just says so much about someone who believes in American values so much so that they're willing to die for it, not only on foreign shores, but their own backyard.
We take it piece by piece, like we've been doing. We build the path as we can, rock by rock.
Ralph Abernathy was the second in command after Martin Luther King. He was Martin Luther King's trusted advisor in many ways, and deepest and dearest friend.
This way, Dr. King.
He was also part of making sure that Dr. King was pushed to the forefront. But in turn, I think that sometimes he sort of got a little glossed over. And I think what Ava and Paul Webb, what they're doing is really showing all the leaders. There's so many leaders that were part of this movement and trying to give everyone a significant amount of their voice and let their voice be heard, which is great.
If a Negro tries to register, actually musters up the courage to go in that courthouse, that their name and address is published in the paper. I'm playing the gentle giant of the civil rights movement, James Orange. He was a union leader and civil rights leader, and he's one of King's right-hand men.
Big speech lined up for these folks tonight, Doc?
We need to see what's what first, big fella.
I've met James Orange on quite a few occasions. He's a very impressive man. So when the audition came around, they said, you're gonna be reading for James Orange. I was like, I gotta get this. I said, this is something I gotta do for my mother's sake, my father's sake, and just for the ancestors.
Doc, this is it. Selma's the place.
James Bevel is a reverend, and he was from Ida Bena, Mississippi. And he is a radical, very brilliant, very outspoken, and part of King's team, which was really the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, but it was a main group of men and women who really were the mindset behind the movement.
We were here first, and they called him in. I get it, I understand that. But if we are really and truly for the people, and the people of Selma chose him.
It's a little bit of a nerve-wracking sort of thing going in, just because he's a hero to many, many people. Just so important, just knowing what he's done and what his whole life has been about. He came in and surprised us on set one day. We were just in the middle of shooting a scene, like we called cut, and then comes John Lewis out of nowhere. I was like, I wanted to like pass out.
I said, you look just like the young John Lewis when he had all of his hair and a few pounds lighter. And it was very emotional because it took me back to the days in Selma, back in 1965. These were my friends. These were my sisters and brothers, part of my movement family. We marched together. We bled together. We cried together. We were jailed together.
I ain't talking what's right by God. I am talking facts. Cold, hard facts. Now, you take 2 of them, and they take 10 of us. Now, we have to win another way.
I met Ambassador Young very briefly about a year ago. I did a movie called 42, which we shot here, partly here in Atlanta. And at one of the screenings of it, he came. But then he came to one of our rehearsals for this project, and he just sat and talked for about an hour and a half and was the most relaxed, calm, sharp. I mean, he was so, so sharp and remembered every little detail, you know, about things that happened 50 years ago. But it's a bit nerve-wracking to play someone who's still alive, who like so many people admire, and rightfully so. But it also was kind of liberating to go, oh, he's a man, you know? Yeah, he's a hero and like, you know, an amazing man, but he's a man.
I was with Dr. King when he spoke with Lyndon Johnson in the middle of December 1964.
Civil rights is a priority of this administration, as you know.
He was not against voting rights. He was simply saying he was nursing a very delicate coalition that had just passed a civil rights bill. And he didn't want to break it up by raising voting rights. Well, we understood that and almost agreed with it until we left, and I said to Dr. King, well, what did you think? And he said, the president says he doesn't have any power. And I said, well, what about that? He said, well, we got to find a way to get him some power.
We hold this story so dear in the writing process and in the research process. It was so much about trying to get inside the history, the memory, the inner being of these men and women who did this thing. And then they walk in the door. is an incredible gift, both to the film, but then also just personally, to be so close to these people who did such heroic things. It really reinforces the idea that they are, you know, legends among us.
Sometimes I wish I were more out there in the trenches.
You do more than you know, Mrs. King.
I think Ava, as a director and as a writer, has been very vocal and very adamant in making sure that the diversity of women were represented in this script, and I think she's been incredibly successful in doing that. For a lot of people, Coretta is the only real female figure of the movement, but in fact, there were some incredibly dynamic, forceful, powerful, and relevant women that played as much a part in making Selma the moment in history that it was as any of the men.
Even within the civil rights movement, women were marginalized. They were just as talented, they were just as fervent about the injustices of the day, but we were in a time where there was just an endemic sexism. And as a result, we don't have female champions of the movement. We don't have Annie Lee Cooper Boulevard. We don't have, Fannie Lou Hamer Highway. We don't have these incredible women who did incredible things, who sacrificed just as much, if not more, at times, being celebrated as part of the movement.
To imagine telling this story without women deeply incorporated is to not tell the story well, and to not do justice to what really happened.
Annie Lee Cooper?
I got talked into doing Annie Lee Cooper. I didn't want to do Annie Lee Cooper because, you know, she punches out the sheriff. And Sophia in The Color Purple punched out the sheriff. And Gloria in The Butler, you know, punched out her son. I can't be in a film without hitting somebody. Well, you do it well. I can't be in a film without hitting somebody. What is that?
Worth it. Black ball!
So I was a little reluctant in the beginning to do that. But I was convinced to do Annie Lee Cooper because of the magnitude of not just the woman and the character, but the magnitude and the magnificence of what her courage meant to an entire movement.
Wonder what old Don will say when I tell him one of his gals down here stirring a fuss.
I ain't stirring no fuss. I'm just here trying to register to vote.
I mean, she represents, in this film, the essence of why they came to Selma.
This here's the place we need to be. This right here is the next great battle.
I can only imagine.
I played Diane Nash, who is still alive, and this incredibly courageous woman that became a leader when she was about 19 or 20. She was a Chicago native and moved to Nashville and was just struck by the prejudice and racism and Jim Crow in a way that she had not experienced where she was from, and started working with the Freedom Riders and organizing there. And she's just incredible. I mean, at 20, she was able to make the Attorney General of the United States call and say, "Who the hell is Diane Nash?" Because she was creating such a stir.
I prefer to be prepared.
Yes, I understand that.
I admire you.
Amelia Boynton's a wonderful historical character, and there are so few women in this movement that were upfront and fearless and outspoken, unapologetically. It really is an honor to be playing sort of a warrior woman in the movement.
We are descendants of a mighty people. They are in our bloodstream, pumping our hearts every second. They've prepared you.
I had the opportunity to play Coretta Scott King in a production for HBO called Boycott. And it was really dealing with the bus boycott of 1955. So that's 10 years prior to who I'm playing now. And I think I'm really dealing with a very different Coretta at this point. They're deep in the trenches. And as a result, there's just much more of a burden that I think is very evident in the way that she conducts herself.
I have myself and the truth. That is all I stand on today.
You've said disrespectful things in the past, Minister. So you'll understand why there is some alarm here tonight.
I think Coretta is one of those women that was forever the devoted wife. But I think what we're exploring in this script is the fact that although there was a presentation of devotion, I think internally there was a lot of struggle that she had to go through.
I can't see life sometimes because of the fog of death constantly hanging over.
She was his partner in marriage, but his partner in his work and his life and his faith as well. And that must have been exhausting. I think that was important to Ava to show.
The comprehensive plan is already in place. The act was only passed 6 months ago. So hammer home that impatience only hurts the overall cause.
I play Lee White. He was an advisor first to Kennedy and then to LBJ. And so I think that he's working for somebody who's inherited a lot. The 60s were explosive.
I got Congress calling me by the dozens. I get picketing that gets bigger and bigger every day. He tugs on their goddamn white liberal conscience. Every march pulls them, especially when people are getting beat up in the streets. I come to it from a certain distance. I'm not American, so the president doesn't loom as large in my consciousness as he does for you. But what you have to do, playing any role, is just adopt his point of view. He is making decisions about something that are of great importance, but he is, after all, just a human being. Presidents don't suddenly become these magnificent sort of super beings. They are men doing the best they can under, I imagine, the most trying circumstances possible. George, why are you doing this? Your whole career's been working for the poor. Why are you off on this black thing?
No, because you can't never satisfy them. When I was a kid, we were enamored with Martin Luther King. It was kind of legendary, the march from Selma-to-Montgomery, in our house, certainly, in kind of as when we were kids. And Wallace was the sort of monster. That's how we saw him. An indescribably bad kind of guy. I remember seeing footage of him on television and so on, and being amazed by what was coming out of his mouth.
They seek to make us one mongrel unit.
instead of allowing each race to flourish from its separate racial station as
I think Ava was really adept in showing the Johnson-Wallace trajectories and how they diverge. The final images of Wallace, I think, give you a sense of a tragedy in the sense of a man who was on the wrong side of history.
So step up for me. Everyone walk forward. It's crucial to film it in the real place, crucial to film it in the South, and crucial to get into Alabama, to be on that bridge. When I say troopers withdraw, you'll clap. Okay, here we go. Let's try it.
Obviously, it would have been cheaper to shoot this in Atlanta and to do it, but we all knew that you had to be on the Edmund Pettus Bridge. That was really the Edmund Pettus Bridge and not a Hollywood version.
To go back to Selma and make this film, to have people walking across that bridge one more time, it's almost too much.
It was absolutely vital to get to the real places. I'm so fortunate that the state of Alabama and the people of Selma allowed us to recreate the story there.
50 years ago, their feet actually touched the same pavement that mine are touching right now, right here. And there's something spiritually powerful about that, when you know that you're walking, literally walking in the same footsteps of those people who paved the way for you. Yeah, it's incredible.
Let's bow in prayer.
Yeah.
Father, in Jesus' name, we thank you. Bless their efforts, God, each and every effort they put toward this mission. And let us be blessed and reminded of who we are and where we've come from. In Jesus' name, amen.
This is an unlawful assembly. You have 2 minutes to disperse.
You can't make a movie about the March on Selma and not have violence be a primary character.
The Bloody Sunday sequence puts you in that place and you understand what that was. State-sponsored violence and terrorism against people that just wanted their right to vote. For Ava, it couldn't just be a history lesson. For her, it had to be cinematic.
She made a stylistic choice in terms of how she portrayed it.
And I think Bradford Young's cinematography is just incredible. It's so suited to this in that it creates a mood and atmosphere. It's not all bright lights. It is experiencing the highs and the lows. And because the lows feel low, it creates a very particular mood. As a result, the highs are all that higher. And Mark Friedberg, who's known for doing not just intimate films, but Noah and Spider-Man and films on the highest budget scale, designed this film with such authenticity. Mark found a podium that Dr. King actually used. David Oyelowo spoke from that podium.
And we embrace this new energy so boldly.
We had come to set up for the end of the march here in Montgomery. Montgomery had been very cooperative, taking down lampposts, painting out the street lines, and the art department put up our platform, and we put up the lectern that we brought, the piece that we had rented that we thought would be fine for this scene. And everything was pretty good about the set we'd made, except that piece, the lectern. It felt wrong, and I couldn't figure out why. It's just bothering me. Finally, upon seeing it, it occurred to me that the problem was it shouldn't have been a lectern at all. It should have been a pulpit. And here we are, 11th hour, shooting the next day. Where do you get a pulpit? However, the State House is over there, and the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church is right behind us. The Dexter Avenue Baptist Church is the church that Martin Luther King pastored at from 1955 to 1960. It is the only church that he was the pastor of. So we thought, let's ask them if we can use their pulpit. So we went and we asked. We talked to the deacon of the church, who's been there since 1960. He was baptized here, and he said that 2 days before he had actually found the old pulpit, the original pulpit, the pulpit that Martin Luther King actually used in today's speech, in the speech that happened in 1965 on March 25th, and the one that happened here today for us. So it's really an amazing thing, and it gave a lot of energy to our scene, and I know it gave a lot of energy to David.
Because you shall reap what you sow.
When will we be free? Soon and very soon, because mine eyes have seen the...
But also, we're not shooting the whole movie in the exact places that it took place. We're shooting a lot of what is scripted for Selma in Atlanta. We've traveled in some of the small towns around Atlanta to try and build our own Selma. We've found places with 3, 4, 5 blocks in a row where we can actually turn it into a big set. And for a movie about marching and marches, you need streets. But it's more than looking up history and recreating exactly those things. We got the Oval Office right, we put the right presidents up, we had the right color carpet. That stuff matters, that stuff we know about. Not really everybody knows about the Jackson House, we went to visit that. We did a lot of research, and that is important. But what a designer does is they divide the visual world into criteria: color palette, tonality, architecture. So for this world, I made a decision to put Wallace and Johnson in a box. The government world lived together, and we gave them red, white, and blue. And it wasn't hard because the White House was already white walls and a blue carpet, and Wallace's office had red furniture and blue carpet. We really made it kind of cold, primary, very familiar, but in the context of our story, not settling. Whereas the color palette for our heroes, for the characters that we're following, is much more mixed colors, not primary colors. Turquoise, orange, colors that were a little bit more vibrant and in celebration of life.
Ava showed me vintage photographs from the 60s, and we noticed there was a lot of yellow. Yellow and green was big in the 60s. So we worked with the costume houses in Los Angeles. We spent weeks there pulling clothes, and we would pinpoint yellows when we saw them in the stock rooms, and we'd make sure we had a lot of yellow and green in our palette and no red. And we brought everything here to Atlanta, and it's nice when you see a scene and the mood and the composition really comes together for the period. So the research kind of goes on and on and on. Then as you start recognizing and identifying, things start coming to life and making sense. You see a picture of them in the first march, and you see their faces, and they look, like in Bloody Sunday, they look a little frightened, they look a little more serious. They're traveling along the road, and you see the trench coats, and you realize that these aren't just them wearing coats, they're actually putting on protection because they know that there's a threat of violence on the other side.
I think of these efforts as one effort. And that one effort is for our life. Our life as a community. Our life as a nation.
You have to start with a good story. Otherwise, you don't really ever get out of the door. We really just start with stories. And then at the same time, we're big movie geeks, and we really like directors and filmmakers and singularity of voice and expression. And so it just makes sense to us, I think, to put those together.
Sheriff Clark, we're trying to gain access to the registration office, which is our legal right.
It's an inspiring story about how a group of people who were very young, ordinary people, they, through strategy and tactics, were able to change the course of history, actually change the world for the better.
These were men and women who were fighting for American values when America wasn't actually acting on the very values that it was based on.
No citizen of this country can call themselves blameless, for we all bear a responsibility for our fellow man.
People actually were dying for all the rights that we have now, for the idea for us to just sit in a movie theater, to walk down the street, for our collective consciousness as a nation. I think it's that important that we hear this story now.
The way our organization works is straightforward. We negotiate, we demonstrate, we resist.
King's philosophy, passive resistance. It works. You can change the world, but it takes leadership, and you need someone like King to actually inspire people with that courage and that conviction.
Dr. King inspired me to get in trouble, what I call good trouble, necessary trouble. And it's my hope that this movie, Selma, would inspire another generation to get in good trouble.
He did what he did because he had the people behind him. And obviously he was this amazingly charismatic, spiritually driven and motivated leader.
Somewhere it is.
But he couldn't have done that without the people.
The president could stop this with a stroke of his pen. He chooses not to.
To have an American like Dr. King, who has largely been reduced to a phrase, I have a dream, to give him context, I think is hugely important for so many who maybe know less than they should.
Our society has distorted who we are. From slavery to the Reconstruction, to the precipice at which we now stand.
There's a beauty in resisting what you know to be untrue. And the lie that the people in this film and the people who really lived were resisting is that they were less than. And whether you're black in 1965 rural Alabama, or whether you're in 2014-15 and there's something that's not sitting well with you, no one is less than anyone else. And the barriers and the structures and the systems that are put around us to make us feel less than are untrue. And so whenever you can watch a story unfold where people have triumphed over that lie, it's something that's universal. It's a good thing.